Agenda for American renewal, and it makes sense. It's sensible. It creates jobs. It gets to the base of the kind of jobs we need. And so I'll just be asking for support to get that put into effect.
All right, the next question goes to Governor Clinton for 2 minutes. It will be asked by Sandy.
Governor Clinton, when a president running for the first time gets into the office and wants to do something about the economy, he finds in Washington there's a person who has much more power over the economy than he does, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, accountable to no one. That being the case, would you go along with proposals made by Treasury Secretary James Brady and Congressman Lee Hamilton to make the Federal Reserve Board chairman somehow more accountable to elected officials?
Well, let me say that I think that we might ought to review the terms and the way it works, but frankly, I don't think that's the problem today. We have low interest rates today. At least we have low interest rates that the Fed can control. Our long-term interest rates are still pretty high because of our deficit and because of our economic performance. And there was a terrible reaction internationally to Mr. Bush saying he was going to give us 4 more years of trickle-down economics, another across-the-board tax cut, and most of it going to the wealthy with no real guarantee of investment. But I think the important thing is to use the powers the president does have on the assumption that given the condition of this economy, we're going to keep interest rates down if we have the discipline to increase investment and reduce the debt at the same time. That is my commitment. I think the American people are hungry for your action. I think Congress is hungry for someone who will work with them instead of manipulate them, someone who will not veto a bill that has an investment tax credit, middle-class tax relief, research and development tax credits, as Mr. Bush has done. Give me a chance to do that. I don't have to worry, I don't think, in the near term about the Federal Reserve. Their policies, so far, it seems to me, are pretty sound.
President Bush, you have 1 minute.
I don't think the Fed ought to be put under the executive branch. There is separation there. I think that's fine. Alan Greenspan is respected. I've had some arguments with him about the speed in which we might have lowered rates. But Governor Clinton, he talks about the reaction to the markets. There was a momentary fear that he might win, and that the markets went down like that. So I don't think we can judge on. The stock market has been strong. It's been very strong since I've been president, and they recognize we got great difficulties, but they're also much more optimistic than the pessimists we have up here tonight. In terms of vetoing tax bills, you're darn right. I am going to protect the American taxpayer against the spend and tax Congress, and I'm going to keep on vetoing them because I don't think we are taxed too little. I think the government's spending too much. So Governor Clinton can label it tax for the rich or anything he wants. I'm going to protect the working man by continuing to veto and to threaten veto until we get this new Congress, when then we're going to move forward on our plan. I've got to protect them.
Mr. Perot, 1 minute.
Keep the Federal Reserve independent, but let's live in a world of reality. We live in a global economy, not a national economy. These interest rates we have now don't make any sense. We have a $4 trillion debt, and only in America would you finance 70% of it 5 years or less. So 70% of our debt is 5 years or less. It's very interest sensitive. We have a 4% gap between what we pay for treasuries and what Germany pays for 1 to 5 year treasuries. That gap is going to close because the Arabs, the Japanese, and folks in this country are going to start buying German treasuries because they can get more money. Every time our interest rates go up 1%, that adds $28 billion to the deficit or to the debt, whichever place you want to put it. We are sitting on a ticking bomb, folks, because we have totally mismanaged our country, and we had better get it back under control. Just think, in your own business, if you had all of your long-term problems financed short-term, you'd go broke in a hurry.
All right, we're going to move to foreign affairs. The first question goes to Mr. Perot for a 2-minute answer, and Sandy will ask it.
Mr. Perot, in the post-war Cold War environment, what should be the overriding U.S. national interest? And what can the United States do, and what can it afford to do to defend that national interest?
Well, again, if you're not rich, you're not a superpower, so we have 2 that I'd put as number 1. I have 1 and 1A. One is we've got to have the money to be able to pay for defense. And we've got to manufacture here. Believe it or not, folks, you can't ship it all overseas. You got to make it here. And you can't convert from potato chips to airplanes in an emergency. See, Willow Run could be converted from cars to airplanes in World War II because it was here. We've got to make things here. You just can't ship them overseas anymore. I hope we talk more about that. Second thing, on priorities, we've got to help Russia succeed in its revolution and all of its republics. When we think of Russia, remember we're thinking of many countries now. We've got to help them. That's pennies on the dollar compared to renewing the Cold War. Third, we've got all kinds of agreements on paper and some that are being executed on getting rid of nuclear warheads. Russia and its republics are out of control, or at best in weak control right now. It's a very unstable situation. You've got every rich Middle Eastern country over there trying to buy nuclear weapons, as you well know. And that will lead to another 5-star migraine headache down the road. We really need to nail down the intercontinental ballistic missiles, the ones that can hit us from Russia. And we're focused on the tactical. We've made real progress there. We've got some agreements on the nuclear, but we don't have those things put away yet. The sooner the better. So in terms of priorities, we've got to be financially strong. Number two, we've got to take care of this missile situation and try to get the nuclear war behind us and give that a very high priority. And number three, we need to help and support Russia and the republics in every possible way to become democratic, capitalistic societies and not just sit back and let those countries continue in turmoil, because they could go back worse than things used to be. And believe me, there are a lot of old boys in the KGB and the military that liked it to better the way it used to be. Thank you.
Governor Clinton, 1 minute.
In order to keep America the strongest nation in the world, we need some continuity and some change. There are three fundamental challenges. First of all, the world is still a dangerous and uncertain place. We need a new military and a new national security policy equal to the challenges of the post-Cold War era. A smaller permanent military force, but one that is more mobile, well-trained with high-technology equipment. We need to continue the negotiations to reduce the nuclear arsenals in the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, and the United States. We need to stop this proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Second, we have to face that in this world, economic security is a whole lot of national security. Our dollar's at an all-time low against some foreign currencies. We're weak in the world. We must rebuild America's strength at home. And finally, we ought to be promoting the democratic impulses around the world. Democracies are our partners. They don't go to war with each other. They're reliable friends in the future. National security, economic strength, democracy.
President Bush, 1 minute.
Well, we still are the envy of the world in terms of our military. There's no question about that. We're the envy of the world in terms of our economy, in spite of the difficulties we're having. There's no question about that. Our exports are dramatically up. I might say to Mr. Perot, I can understand why you might have missed it, because there's so much fascination by trivia, but I worked out a deal with Boris Yeltsin to eliminate, get rid of entirely the most destabilizing weapons of all, the SS-18, the big intercontinental ballistic missile. I mean, that's been done. And thank God it has, because the parents of these young people around here go to bed at night without the same fear of nuclear war. We made dramatic progress. And so we've got a good military. The question is, we get a new military, get the best in the world. We got it. And they're keeping the peace. And they're respected around the world. And we are more respected, because the way we have conducted ourselves. We didn't listen to the nuclear freeze crowd. We said peace through strength, and it worked, and the Cold War is over. And America understands that. But we're so turned so inward, we don't understand the global picture. And we are helping democracy. Ross, the Freedom Support Act is something that I got through the Congress, and it's a very good thing, because it does exactly what you say, and I think you agree with that, to help Russian democracy. We're going to keep on doing that.
All right, next question is for Governor Clinton, and John will ask it.
Governor Clinton, you've accused the president of coddling tyrants, including those in Beijing. As president, how would you exert U.S. power to influence affairs in China?